So we are in the Discourse on Method by Descartes, and we come now, this is the Hackett edition, by the way, we come now to the central metaphor of the Discourse on Method, the architectural imagery for knowledge. So when you're building a building, you need a solid foundation, and then you build on that foundation in an orderly fashion. One brick is laid on top of another brick in an orderly way. And with knowledge, it's similar. One belief is based on other beliefs in an orderly way. Those other beliefs are based on still other beliefs in an orderly way, which are based on other beliefs in an orderly way. When I say orderly, what I mean is, above all, that there's good evidence, that these beliefs constitute good evidence for these beliefs, which constitute good evidence for the beliefs based on them, which constitute in turn good evidence for the beliefs based on them. But all of it resting ultimately on a solid foundation. And that solid foundation would be whatever it is that we know without having to base it on other beliefs, because it doesn't go on into infinity. It's not like we have an infinite number of beliefs to base on each other. You can't just keep going down and never get to a starting point. There has to be a starting point if we know anything at all, and the starting point is that which we know without basing it on other beliefs. So that brings us to an important question. What sort of belief can be a basic belief in the structure of knowledge? What can be known without having to base that knowledge on some other belief? And the answer to that question is, well, it's what Descartes is giving us in this book. Descartes' book is to answer that question. And his new method of, well, in the words of the title, his new method for conducting one's reason well and for seeking the truth in the sciences, this new method is meant to answer that question, to identify a solid foundation for knowledge, and then begin to build on it in an orderly fashion. All right, so in philosophy, we use the word foundationalism to refer to this theory in epistemology. It's the theory that knowledge needs a foundation in beliefs that are known without being based on other beliefs. So Descartes is the paradigmatic historical example of a strong foundationalist philosopher. Roughly speaking, a strong foundationalist philosopher is a foundationalist who's someone like Descartes, which is to say he believes one or two or three of the following things. He believes that the foundation on which all knowledge is based has to be exactly 100% certain, not 90% probable, not even 99% probable or 99.99, but exactly 100% certain. Two, what's built on it has to be built meticulously, flawlessly, at least for the first few levels. There's got to be perfect arguments for what we believe based on this foundation, at least up to a certain level. Somewhere high enough, maybe probability can come in. Building on the illustration of a building, somewhere on the roof, if you have a flat roof, somewhere on the third story, if you have a 3-story building without a flat roof, doesn't matter as much how well you arrange things there, because you're not building more stories of a building on top of it. You're building much less. It doesn't have to hold as much weight. So somewhere later on in the structure of knowledge, probability is fine, but you have to have a really solid foundation, 100% certainty. That's one normal characteristic of strong foundationalism. Another is you have to build with perfect arguments based on that foundation, and at least up to a certain point. Let's see, what else? Evidence only goes in one way. Evidence goes from the foundation upward. It goes from the foundational beliefs that we know without basing them on other beliefs to whatever's believed based on that basis, and then from there to other beliefs. But you don't find that on the 15th layer of knowledge, with some belief that is based on really good evidence from other beliefs, from other beliefs, from other beliefs, from other beliefs down to the foundation. You don't find that 15th layer of knowledge in turn loops back and supports the foundation. So one other characteristic of what's called strong, also sometimes called classical foundationalism, is one of the descriptions of what's on this this really solid foundation at the base of knowledge. The criteria for the foundation. So foundationalism in epistemology is the theory that we need a solid foundation for knowledge on which Everything else is based. All our beliefs are based on, well, most of our beliefs are based on just a few beliefs. All beliefs except those few beliefs are based on those few beliefs. And those few beliefs are at the foundation of knowledge, and they're the things we know without basing our belief in them on some other beliefs. That's foundationalism, which leads to the question, what sort of belief can be a foundation for knowledge like that? And the search for a criterion for foundational belief in the structure of knowledge. And the naming of that criterion is often given as a characteristic of strong foundationalism or classical foundationalism, when we say that the criterion is that basic belief has to be incorrigible, meaning it can't be corrected, or evident to the five senses, or self-evident. This is Alvin Plantinga's description of classical foundationalism. Now, any way you describe classical or strong foundationalism, Descartes is the paradigmatic example. He'll accept all of those things. All of these characteristics of Descartes, all of these characteristics of strong or classical foundationalist epistemology, they all fit Descartes, from what I can tell, just totally perfectly. But don't misunderstand the or. If the characteristic of classical or strong foundationalism we're talking about is that the criterion for knowledge for a basic belief is it has to be incorrigible or evident to the senses or self-evident, note that I said or, and with Descartes, it's not evident to the senses. That's not good enough for the foundation. It's got to be self-evident and incorrigible. All right, so it might be better not to use the language of self-evident and incorrigible, because who even knows what incorrigible means these days? That's a vocabulary word that most of us don't ever bother to work with. Let's see, other than Alvin Plantinga and one Dilbert cartoon, I can't recall ever having to use the word myself. So, a better description of the absolute basis of knowledge would be whatever Descartes gives us. So let's just move that direction, but I'll preview it by saying it's the belief that I exist, and its central characteristic is it's so certain it cannot even be doubted. All right. With all this introduction, we should wrap up this video quickly, just looking at some of Descartes' words for his general strategy. He says, and we are in part 2 of the Discourse on Method in this Hackett edition, we are on page 8, he says, as regards all the opinions to which I had until now given credence, I could not do better than to try to get rid of them all at once, in order to replace them later on, either with the other ones that are better, or even with the same ones, once I had reconciled them to the norms of reason. And I firmly believed that by this means I would succeed in conducting my life much better than if I were to build only upon old foundations, and if I were to rely only on the principles of which I had allowed myself to be persuaded in my youth, without ever having examined whether they were true. Wow, there's a lot to talk about. So, the first part of the Discourse on Method talked about how all of his old beliefs are not known. And in the second part, he's sitting in the stove-heated room in Germany for quite a few pages of the book as he recounts the story of his life. And in this chapter of his life, he was sitting in the stove-heated room in Germany, thinking, carefully, sitting and thinking by himself. And as he's sitting and thinking, he reasons that knowledge, in order to be well established, needs to be built on a solid foundation. And nothing we believe up to this point is based on a solid foundation. He's described in great detail in part 1 why he thinks there's no knowledge up till now. So he's going to try to give us knowledge, but that means giving us a new foundation for knowledge and a better method for getting knowledge, since the whole point from the very first 3 sentences of the book, 4 sentences, whatever it was on page 1, the whole point was to use reason well, since we all have reason, which is the ability to distinguish the true from the false, or the ability to make good judgment, but we're not all using it the same way, we're not all using it with the right method for gaining knowledge. So he's going to give us the method, he's going to give us the foundation for knowledge, he's going to give us the establishment of reliable, accurate, rational beliefs, not just believed because someone else told us, and all established according to the same strategy for reasoning and the same method. So here he's hinting at what his strategy is going to be. His strategy is going to be ruthless, systematic doubt, doubting everything that he can doubt. In other words, tear down every belief, stop believing anything he's ever believed, until he can rebuild a new system of belief based on on a solid foundation and solid evidence at every level. Now, the idea here is not to doubt for the sake of doubt. It's to doubt for the sake of certainty. It's not to disbelieve. In fact, it's not to disbelieve, it's merely to doubt. To believe something is not true is to have a belief about it. The point is more to not believe anything, not to believe or to disbelieve, but to suspend a judgment. That's closer to the point of the exercise. The point is, again, not to doubt perpetually, but to doubt in order to establish knowledge. And the point is not to eliminate all my old beliefs. All the beliefs in, for example, Catholicism. He's a professing Catholic, and he says he reveres our theology. I revered our theology, he says. The point is not to eliminate, for example, his belief in Catholicism. It's to get rid of all his opinions once and for all, and then build a new set of beliefs in a more orderly fashion according to a consistent plan, built on the right foundation with solid reasoning, believed in and arrived at through the same method of reasoning, and possibly include the same old beliefs or not. So, as it turns out, he'll doubt his Catholicism for a bit, and then he'll reestablish it. He'll reestablish a lot of his old beliefs, but not all. Some of the old opinions will be gone forever, and some old opinions will be restored, but this time built on a solid foundation. So how's he going to go about all this doubt? Well, we have to wait, especially for part 4 of the Discourse on Method. So I'd better just stop now. I've said too much in this video. Let's go to maybe the next paragraph in the next video. And thanks for watching this philosophy nerd talk about Descartes.